Hi there, and welcome back to another story and more fun facts about a constellation. I'm Annika, a stargazer and spacecrafter, and today I'm going to talk about the constellation Perseus. Perseus is another one of my favorites. It has an interesting shape and contains some cool objects that you can look at with binoculars. It's one of the first constellations I look for in the autumn, when the evenings are getting darker again after months of light Finnish summer nights. And it is also the place to turn your gaze towards in August if you want to see shooting stars or meteors. But more about that later. The constellation Perseus is named after one of the great heroes of Greek mythology. And as with any great hero, the story of his conception is extraordinary, so let's start there. When our story begins, the land of Argos was ruled by King Perseus, who had seized his power from his brother Perseus. But Perseus could not relax, because he had no male heir, only a daughter, Danae. And he had been told by the oracle at Delphi that one day he would be killed by his own grandson. To prevent Danae from ever having a child, he imprisoned her in a tower with walls of metal. What he didn't know, though, was that Zeus had his eyes on the beautiful Danae, and a cage of metal was no match for the king of the gods. Zeus turned himself into a shower of gold and rained down on Danae, who became pregnant as a result. Soon after, the demigod Perseus was born, and Perseus was enraged. He didn't dare to kill the child, though, and risk the wrath of the gods. So he put mother and child in a wooden box and sent them out to sea, hoping that this would solve the problem. The box, however, was washed ashore on the island of Seriphos, and there Danae and Perseus were taken in by the fisherman Dictys, who raised Perseus like his own son. The king of Seriphos was called Polydectes, and by the time Perseus had grown into a young man, Polydectes had set his eyes on Danae. Perseus, however, was protective of his mother, who didn't want to marry Polydectes. So the king came up with a plan to humiliate and get rid of Perseus. Polydectes arranged a large banquet where each guest were to bring him an expensive gift. The other guests brought horses, but Perseus couldn't afford a gift like that, which the king, of course, was well aware of. Then Polydectes asked Perseus to bring him the head of the Gorgon Medusa instead. Medusa was a hideous monster with snakes instead of hair, sharp fangs and claws, wings of gold, and a gaze that could turn anyone who looked at her to stone. Perseus knew that this was a very dangerous mission, so he prayed to the gods before setting out. His father Zeus then sent out two of his other children, Hermes and Athena, to give their half-brother weapons to help him defeat Medusa. Hermes lent him a pair of winged sandals to fly with, a sword, and a helmet that belonged to Hades, the god of the underworld, and which made the wearer invisible. Athena lent him her polished shield, which he could use as a mirror, as well as a bag to put the severed head in, because Medusa's head was not safe to look at even when she was dead. Athena then told Perseus what he should do to find out the whereabouts of Medusa. When Perseus finally found Medusa and her two sisters, they were all asleep in a cave. With the help of the mirror image on Athena's shield, Perseus could creep up on the sleeping monsters without looking at them directly. He then cut off Medusa's head with a sword, put the head in a bag, and quickly flew away on the winged sandals. Medusa's two sisters immediately flew after him to take revenge, but thanks to the invisibility helmet, he escaped them. If you watched my previous video, you know that Medusa's head came to good use when Perseus was on his way home, when he saved the princess Andromeda from a sea monster. If you haven't watched the video yet, I recommend you do, because that is also a great story. In the story about Andromeda, I also mentioned Pegasus. Pegasus was a horse with wings that was born when the pregnant Medusa's head was cut off. One version says that Pegasus sprang out of Medusa's neck when her head came off. And another says that Pegasus was born when Medusa's blood mixed with sea foam when Perseus fled with the head. In any case, it was the sea god Poseidon who, in the shape of a horse, had visited Medusa and fathered Pegasus. The gods of Olympus were quite inventive when it came to producing children. Greek mythology is full of weird and wonderful people and creatures with a mixed heritage from gods, humans, animals, nymphs, and monsters. But what happened with King Acrisius, you may ask? Was he killed by his grandson Perseus, as the oracle predicted? Well, that is a story for another day, but I'll give you a hint. In the old stories, humans often try to be clever and escape their destiny. But the thing with destiny is that it's predestined, and therefore very hard to outwit. Now, if outwitting your destiny is difficult, then finding Perseus is a lot easier. Here's what to do. Start by looking for Cassiopeia, which looks like a big W. Somewhere next to Cassiopeia, you will find a wonky Y shape. This is Perseus. A line drawn from the third and second stars from the left in Cassiopeia points towards Murphak, which is the brightest star in Perseus. Around Murphak, you will find one of my favorite objects to look at through binoculars, the Alpha Persei group, or Melot 20, which is an open cluster of stars. Some people call a certain pattern of stars or asterism within this cluster the Christmas goose or the space goose, because with a bit of an imagination, it looks like a cute little goose stretching its neck. The second brightest star in the constellation is Algol. The name comes from the Arabic word for ghoul or ogre, and it is often known as the demon star. And the demon in question is of course Medusa in our story, or her creepy severed head with its petrifying gaze. In some cultures, Algol was also connected with bad luck or dark times, so it's fair to ask why this star has such a negative vibe in folklore. The answer can be found in the nature of Algol as a star. Algol is what astronomers today call a variable star, that is a star whose light isn't constant but varies in brightness. In the late 1600s, astronomers observed that about every 3 days, Algol would dim for about 10 hours. Today we know that Algol is a multi-star system where 2 stars orbit very close together and eclipse one another regularly from our viewpoint. One of these stars is not as bright as the other, so when it moves in front of the brightest star every 3 days, it looks to us as if the brightest star grows dim for the time it takes the dimmest star to pass in front of it. In earlier times, people noticed the weird dimming of the demon star, but they didn't know the reason for it, and therefore considered the whole thing suspicious. Why would one star grow dim when all the other stars stayed bright? Surely something to be wary of. Another interesting object to look at through binoculars is the double cluster, which you will find about halfway between Murphach and Cassiopeia. This object consists of two separate open star clusters that are right next to each other, and the more poetic name for this object is the sword handle, as it represents the jeweled handle of Perseus' sword. Another good reason to look for the double cluster is that it is approximately the radiant of the Perseid meteor shower that occurs in August. Okay, so what does that mean? A meteor is a streak of light that travels quickly over the sky and which is often called a shooting star. This streak of light is caused by small bits of space debris that enter the atmosphere and burn up due to friction. The Perseid meteor shower occurs when Earth passes through an area of space debris that has been offloaded by the comet Swift-Tuttle. And when the double cluster is approximately the radiant of the meteor shower, it means that the cluster is the point in the sky from where the light streaks seem to originate or radiate. So if you want to see shooting stars, you have a very good chance of success if you look towards Perseus and the double cluster in August. That's all for this time. I hope you enjoyed the story and my little nuggets of information about the constellation Perseus. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it and follow my channel for more starlore, fun facts and space-inspired art. Bye for now!